Hi, this video is in our Great Engine Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and I'm going to take you through a game between Berserk and Zahak in the currently ongoing TCEC Swiss. It's not a spectacular game, but it's one that I enjoyed greatly. So Berserk outplays Zahak from a typical Sicilian structure with some extremely deft knight manoeuvres. Black's position was drained of all activity, and that gave white all the time in the world to launch a kingside attack. White Sicilian players, they gain a model game for this Sicilian structure, and the black players should note where black could have improved the defence, and also the key moment where it all went wrong. All in all, a very interesting game. So let's have a look how it went. So Berserk was white, Zahak was black, and we have e4, c5. This is still the TCEC book, and we get a slightly unusual variation. So after 6 bishop e3, knight g4, this is still quite normal. I think I was one of the first people to play this with black against John Nunn back in, when would it have been, 1995, 1996 I think. But after bishop g5, instead of the normal h6, the book specified knight c6, h3, knight to f6, and I think that the book ended around this point. Now, I think the first interesting moment is the next move that Berserk played, which was knight takes c6. This is really known as a beginner's mistake. In all the old Sicilian textbooks, you'll see that this move is criticised all the time. It gives black, after b takes c6, an extra pawn in the centre, a pawn that covers the d5 square. That should enable black to play d6 to d5 more easily, and it also gives black the open b file to attack the b2 pawn, which is particularly important if white castles queenside. However, it's a move that the engines all want to play. In my recent book, the Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, we see a fantastic game by Stockfish against Leela in a TCEC super final, and it just seems that essentially the B file can be dealt with, and obviously wrecking this pawn structure on the queen side means that black's king can't go there. And the resulting pawn structure, if black goes kingside, then a push of the kingside pawns can be very dangerous. Essentially, it's hard for black to find a good spot for the king. So it's definitely an interesting way of playing, and not seen as a beginner's move anymore. So Berserk played bishop c4, e6, queen e2. And it's a little bit strange in a way. Zahak just allowed white to play a very simple plan for advantage, really, which was h6, bishop h4, bishop e7, castles, and now just castles. I think in a number of the games that I played, black was playing simply queen c7 and knight d7, trying to stop white from playing e4 to e5 himself. But black allowed it, played castles, and after e5, knight d5, takes, ed, queen d6, knight e4, queen c7. We do have a very typical Sicilian structure. So what are the characteristics of this structure? Well, obviously white's pawn structure is better. Black's got an isolated pawn on c6 and also on a6. There's also the black dark squares, queenside central dark squares, b6, c5, d6, that all seem a little bit weak, and you can imagine in an ending, take the queens off, the white knight will find a great spot on c5, tying down this bishop on c8, whilst also attacking the pawn on a6. I've got to mention that bishop on c8, rather passive at the moment, blocked in by all these pawns, and you would really want to play something like e6 to e5 or bishop b7 and c5, but not easy to achieve. Just like that, white can also resist. So essentially for black, slightly weakened pawn structure and a bishop on c8 that's not particularly active. What black does have is some sort of counterplay on the queen side. Obviously, there's the b file. The dark squares on the queen side are a little bit sensitive for white, and with rook b8, queen b6, well, we can we can try and cause some damage there. And of course, yeah, I mean, there's some sort of future possibilities for white to attack on the king side, but nothing concrete yet. So yeah, I mean, I mean, I would prefer white in this position. I think white is a little bit better, but it's not crucial yet for black. You know, still plenty of play in the position. So rook e1 was played by Berserk. Dragon came up with an interesting plan here. Played g4 immediately, and we got some pretty sharp play here. c5, rook ht1, bishop b7. This is one of the engine games that I ran on my own hardware between Komodo and Stockfish. g5 played. This is a very aggressive plan. I do actually quite like it. But Stockfish held it together with knight f4, bishop takes e4, and then h5. h4 and rook d8, and rook g1, a5. I mean, it's not super comfortable for black, but this knight on f4 is strong, keeps together the whole black king side. Not easy for white to make progress there. So rook h1 was played by Berserk, and then a5. Now, I mean, there's various ways of playing for black. I think essentially there's really two main plans. I mean, either black's going to play a5, play the pawn to a4, try and get an a3, and then try and swap off the light squared bishop with bishop a6, just to get rid of that passive piece. Or black's going to try and play c5 and bishop b7 and get the bishop active on the long diagonal. I think those are the two main plans. And in principle, you know, both are all right for black. This plan with a5 to a4 is, I think, a good one in principle. The only thing you've got to watch out for is that when that pawn comes to a4, endings can get a little bit fraught, because that pawn is very close to the white position, so it's very easy to attack with a combination of a knight, a queen, and a rook, maybe. So, and well, you're going to see that this can be a problem in a few ways. So a5 played, a3, a4, g3, just a very solid move from Berserk, just taking control of f4, no knight f4, no random checks from the queen. Rook d8, supporting the knight on d5, so c5, bishop b7, starting to look a bit more possible. h4, bishop b7, and now knight c5. So first interesting knight move there. The knight moves to c5, stopping black from playing c6 to c5. So rook to a5 was played, and now knight to d3. And here knight b6 was played by Zahak. c5 was something that I was looking at, and then knight e5, rook a8, bishop b5 was what my engines were doing, and white's idea is in actual fact to follow up with f4 to cement the knight on e5, and then c4 to chase the knight away from e7. And yeah, this was not 100% nice for black, really. I mean, knight b6, f4, rook c8, c4 was a game between Stockfish and Komodo Dragon. And yeah, after takes, king b1, queen d6, rook c1, f5, king a1, rook d1, d3, h5, queen f2. Not clear. I mean, there was a lot of shuffling that went on, but in principle, it felt as if Stockfish really had the idea that all of these pawns, d pawn, a pawn, that those would fall eventually if it shuffled long enough. And indeed they did in the test game that I played. So not completely obvious, this plan of c5. I think, yeah, the more natural plan maybe for me would be to play bishop a6, and then just swap off the light squared bishops, get rid of that bad piece, and yeah, I mean, what you were seeing in the resulting position simply was that white was just ending up a little bit better. I mean, these endings are quite nice for white. I mean, the engines can hold them, but you're going to play b3, and get a passed a pawn, and well, then black's got to play actively enough with queen and knight in order to compensate for that. I would find this reasonably tricky to defend as black in one of my games, and well, it wasn't trivial for the engines to hold this either. Yeah, just goes to show really, I think, that that white's long-term prospects are pretty pleasant really. So Zahak played knight b6, kept on well, I suppose hitting the white pieces. Knight f4, rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and now black's got to be very careful here because knight takes e6 is a huge threat. So for example, if you were to play a move like c5, activate that bishop, knight takes e6 would be really nasty. Takes, queen takes e6 check, and well, we've got mate coming in here. So rook a8 was played just to cover the back rank, and now bishop d3, just getting out of the way of the attack of the knight on b6. And now there's some interesting moments here. The move I wanted to play was c5, but this actually looks suicidal, because after knight takes e6, isn't white just winning? F takes e6, queen takes e6 check. Yeah, queen f7 allows various things. Queen b6 is very, very simple, for example. And putting the king in the corner, queen g6 does not feel very healthy. However, my engines were actually looking at this idea, queen c6. Just ignore the knight, and after knight f4, you go c4, bishop f5, queen c5, little subtlety there to hit the bishop on f5, queen g4, and then c3. And there's quite a bit of counterplay here. Knight h5, c takes b2, king b1, queen f8, rook d4, bishop a6, trying to get knight into c4, and the position's a complete mess in actual fact. So it could well be that that c5 in this position was an idea, but it takes quite a lot of vision to appreciate that. Zahak played the move knight d7. Yeah, bringing the knight a little bit closer, maybe coming round to e5 or to c5. I think the only thing about you can say about black's play though is that black's not really achieving very much here, and you're not making much progress to getting c5 in for the moment. So it's just a little bit. You're really running the risk that that you will have made lots and lots of moves at some stage, not achieved anything, and white will just be lots of tempi up. As it is, Berserk played a very nice idea, bishop h7 check. King h7 allows queen d3 check. We pick up the knight on d7, get the queen into the 7th rank, which is quite pleasant. So king h8, bishop e4, and now Zahak was a little bit concerned about c5, because the move queen b5 forks the bishop on b7 and the knight on d7 as well. Bishop takes e4, and then either queen takes d7 or rook takes d7. This is quite pleasant for white, although Stockfish managed to hold it in some of my engine games, but well, that's sort of par for the course, isn't it? Stockfish holds everything. In principle, bishop e4 is quite good prophylaxis against this idea of c5. So bishop a6 was played by Zahak, queen e3, rook b8, and now bishop d3. And this is really the crucial moment, I think. The position has sort of turned round and round and round. Both sides have made little feints to the left and right. But now really is the crucial moment where black has to take a decision, and bishop takes d3 was really necessary. Now my engines played a lot of games from this. They all wanted to play knight takes d3, c5, queen f4, takes, knight e5. And again, we've got a standard ending where the contours are simply that white will be able to play b3 at some stage and create an a-pawn, and black will have to deal with that. Now my engines felt that black should be able to deal with it, but again, from my point of view, if I was playing this in a practical game, I'd feel somewhat unhappy with white. Just to show you a quick example of what happened here. knight d3, knight e5. White always trying to swap off the knights and get into a rook ending where you can just create this outside pass pawn. Rook f8, b3, g5 played, king b2, rook b8, takes here, and yeah, I mean, in this position, yeah, we soon got a draw here, agreed to by Stockfish and Dragon. Probably is a draw, but still looks unbelievably unclear to me. You know, I mean, a lot could go wrong in a human game with little time left in the endgame phase. So, yeah, you know, I mean, probably objectively Black's still doing fine, but again, I do like White's position an awful lot, which, to be honest, is a very nice and very interesting thing to learn about this this typical Sicilian structure. You know, and I feel quite confident now about playing this with White. So after bishop d3, Zahak played bishop b5, and well, I mean, it's a holding move. You know, Black's trying to tempt White to play bishop b5 when after cb5 all the problems on the pawn structure have disappeared. But this is where stuff really starts to go wrong here, because well, White takes the opportunity to play c4, bishop a6 and bishop c2, and all of a sudden the contours of the position have changed. This bishop is now shut out of play. Bishop c4, for example, would allow queen e4, hitting the bishop on c4, threatening queen h7 mate. The pawn on a4 is attacked, and well, actually, this black kingside is looking rather weak, keeping this light squared bishop and bringing it back so that the queen has got access to the b1h7 diagonal. It suddenly makes an awful lot of threats. So e5 was played by Black, and now a really lovely move that caught me by surprise, but once I understood it, I loved it. It's this move knight g2. And what's the idea? The idea is after we go queen b7, attacking the pawn on b2, White plays queen c3, knight c5 and knight e3. And this knight is beautifully placed on e3. It's covering the c4 square, and it's also aiming for the f5 square, where, well, what's it not aiming at? From f5, the knight's aiming at d6, at g7, and at h6. So this is a really, really great setup for White. And of course, you know, we've now got this bishop on a6, completely pinned behind this pawn on c4, and the knight on c5 looks like it's attacking, but it's not. All that it's doing is defending the a4 pawn. And, well, this pressure that Black has on b2 easily dealt with by the white queen on c3. So queen c7, queen d2, played by Berserk. Berserk's looking for queen d6, actually, just going to try and swap off the queens. When, yeah, again, you know, without the queens, then Black's got nothing to create any activity with. So f6, king b1, king g8. And now a slight change of direction from Berserk, but not bad at all. Bishop g6, a thorn bishop. Always noticed how AlphaZero loved to put a diagonal piece close to the opponent's king to pin it to the back rank. And this is a Berserk doing exactly the same thing here. Bishop on g6, very unpleasant move for Black. King h8 and now g4, and g5's coming in. We're simply going to open up the king side, and yeah, you know, where is the Black counterplay here? So e4 was interesting from Zahak, just yeah, in a way cutting off the bishop from the defense of the king and looking for the d3 square. But actually White just didn't bother now. g5, knight d3, and then this great move b4. So covering the pawn on b2, you get a takes b3, but it's the typical thing really that you know, a black pawn actually acts as a shield for the white king, and well, you know, with a bishop on a6, Black's not really going to be able to get much pressure along the a file. So Black's counterplay is going to be really slow, and well, White's is coming now as well. G takes h6. I mean, knight f5 now is a huge threat, threatening hg and also allowing the queen to get to h6. So knight e5 was played, full retreat from Zahak. Hg, queen g7, bishop e4. White's a pawn up, and the attack is still going. Zahak tried to get a pawn back, but now we actually get a slight problem with the black king. Weak back rank here. Queen f8, queen c7. rook b7, queen c6, knight takes c3 takes, rook e7, rook d7, and it's actually very beautiful from white. White's just actually trying to swap off all the pieces, all black's active pieces, that's the queen and the rook, and just leave itself with just a winning bishop ending with pass pawns on both sides of the board. It's a very simple way to play. King g7, queen d6, excellent, takes, king b2, and the win was not far behind. Zahak didn't even bother to protect its pawn, but now we've got a passed h pawn, we've got a passed a pawn, and black is absolutely lost. So I hope you enjoyed that game. I did greatly, actually. Again, not all games have to be massive tactical episodes. It's nice to see a typical structure like this that I've certainly had in my own games as black, as a Sicilian player, and just work out what good white players from there. I think the key thing for black was that black never quite managed to get its plan sorted. Either it needs to swap off its light squared bishop, or get the bishop active along the long diagonal with c5, and somehow in all the moves that followed, black avoided a number of possibilities to get that. And well, I think the critical, really the place where it really went wrong was with the move bishop b5, and then after c4, then and bishop c2. I think here black is just lost in principle. I'd expect engines like Stockfish or Leela or Komodo to win this pretty much every single time. And well, Berserk certainly did the job here. But what I really liked about this one was this move e5, knight g2. I just really had not expected this knight to move back to g2, but the placing the knight on e3 was beautiful. Really, a rock solid structure for white, and that just provided the foundation for a kingside attack with g4 to g5, and well, just my own particular pleasure seeing a move like bishop g6 that you see so often in AlphaZero's games, and you see other engines playing like that. That's really lovely. Just shows how well that idea of king safety, of the value of restricting the opponent's king to the back rank, how well that's understood by the modern engines nowadays. When AlphaZero did this, it was it was pretty new. At least that AlphaZero was doing it so often and so successfully against Stockfish. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did enjoy the video, then why not think about giving me a like? And if you enjoy the channel, then please subscribe. There's going to be lots and lots of stuff. I'm going to do analysis of games like this, beautiful moves, beautiful attacks, and I'll also do some instructional articles, showing how to use functions in chess programs, and how to get the most out of your engines. And also do think about my new chess book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which explains all this stuff in lovely detail. Okay, but in any case, thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you at the next video.